Good evening, dear friends. Those who are joining us from the Zoom portal and also from the YouTube channel, we welcome you here to our third part of the series of COVID. We at SAMVAD would like to really welcome each and every one of you for logging in and for being with us to have wonderful discussions and to actually discuss more about illness and sickness during this COVID scenario. SAMVAD stands for support, advocacy, and mental health interventions for children in vulnerable circumstances and distress. It is a national initiative on child protection, mental health, and psychosocial care, which comes under the Ministry of Women and Child Development. I am June, and this is my colleague Priti, and we will be taking you through this session, and we are looking forward to take you through this session.
In today's time, the realities are very disturbing, with many parents, many caregivers in the hospital, a lot of parents and caregivers. Parents often who are in the hospital worry about who do I leave my child with? What do I do? How do I ensure the safety of my child? And the child who's left behind with absolutely no information. The illness of a parent or a caregiver to a child, how do we put things in perspective for a child in today's time? How do we explain what COVID sickness is? What should we say to our child? This, dear friends, is a dilemma playing out in every parent, caregiver, counselor's mind in the current times. And we are going to have a very interactive session with you today to discuss how can we deal with children, how can we explain and put things in perspective, especially as we are coming to the end of the second wave and we are about to enter a third wave soon. So it becomes very important today to provide right information, authentic information, age-appropriate information to our children so that they're prepared, so that their anxieties are addressed. So thank you very much for joining us today. It's going to be an interactive session, and we request you to kindly participate in the activities. You can participate through the Zoom chat. You can type in your responses. You can also write, those who have joined us on YouTube can write their comments, and we would be able to read the comments here, and we will be giving our responses. Thank you very much, and let's start the session today.
Yeah, as Priti has already shared, so whoever is joining here with us in Zoom portal or even in YouTube, you can be with us throughout this session in all of our activities, in all of our different ways. We'll be wanting to hear from you. We want to hear many things from you. So you can please use the chat box and please write in your opinions and your thoughts so that we can be able to converse with each other and communicate with each other. We would also like to again remind you that we would not be able to take your opinions through the video or even allowing you to unmute yourself because we have muted everyone so that there might be clarity and we wouldn't have much disturbances. So to start with, as my colleague already has shared that we are going to talk about how to disclose illness and death to children in the COVID crisis, let us look at some objectives. So the first objective here is, why should we talk about illness to children? And also what illness disclosure is about, especially in the context of COVID, and how to disclose illness of a parent or a caregiver to a child, which is a very, very important aspect of what we'll be talking about today. And also to go ahead with the COVID pandemic, we have been hearing so much of news. We have been seeing so much of things going around us, and we can see the severity of the virus, which is really high. We can see the level of infections and the spread that is happening right now. And also a lot of people are dying. There's a lot of high mortality rate. Uh, Also with the public healthcare system, people are rushing to hospitals, and there has been a lot of deficit in terms of our public health system, and the burden on the public health system has been very huge. Also, in regards to this, we can also see a lot of children who are orphaned because they have lost either one of their parent or both parent in the COVID crisis. So let's go ahead and let's look and discuss some heightened vulnerabilities and new implications that we can see due to this COVID pandemic. So parents, caregivers, family members are falling sick due to the COVID disease. A lot of them are hospitalized. A lot of them are away from home. And children at homes, they are confused. They're unsettled. They're struggling to make sense of the chaos that is going around them. And also with adults or people who are in the hospital and the caretakers, they are frequently in and out of hospital, taking care of the people who are sick, also arranging things that these sick people need, maybe oxygen, maybe the medicines that they need. So the adults, they are very preoccupied, maybe with the responsibility that they have had, or even with their own upset, or maybe especially with people who have died, or a family who has had death in the family, or a child's mother, a parents, both parents are gone. The administrative formalities that the adults are actually going around through, the last minute arrangement, and the children's are ignored, and their worries are ignored. We can hear a lot of stories of young children who have left on their own to fend for themselves. And with the COVID pandemic and children staying at home, the children are hearing different conversations. Maybe the family members are talking to other family members, the family members are talking to neighbors, and children can hear a lot of conversation about death, maybe about death of a family member, about the death of our relatives. And then because of all these conversations that children are hearing, they are finding it so difficult to deal with the fear that is being created in their minds and their hearts. And also, they're also quite worried and confused about the people who take care of them, the parents or the caregivers. These are some of the heightened vulnerabilities that we can see. And also, not just that, but children are at risk of emotional and behavioral problems as the feelings keeps bottling up. There's so much of confusion, and fear is constantly rising in the minds of these children. So to look forward with it, we would want to do a polling with all of you. We wanted to know your opinions and views on some of the facts and myths. Let us now check some myths and facts about, especially with disclosing illness. So we would want to do this polling with you. So I request all of you, if you can see the chat box, if you can see the questions, you can just click on the answers. Yeah, we have a lot of people answering. The question is, telling children about illness would unnecessarily scare them. So do you think, is it a myth or a fact? Telling children about illness would unnecessarily scare them. What do you think? You can just put in your chat box. You can just click on the link that you get. The people who are joining us from YouTube, if you also would want to join us, you can put it in the chat box also. If you think this is a myth or a fact, telling children about illness would unnecessarily scare them. Yeah. So 45% of people has agreed, um, and 55% has disagreed. So we have a huge number of people who also has disagreed. That is 55%. So I would want to know if you could write in the chat box, the 55% who has disagreed. Uh, why do you think you disagree? I would want to know your opinions and your views. If you can, then whoever has given the disagree, in the 55% of people who have disagreed, if you want to support, why do you think you disagree with this statement? You can put it in the chat box for us to know. Yes, we have Chavi Katyal, who says that it might make them more anxious if they do not know. Swati Ghate, she says, transparency is always better. Malini P, the child should know the reality. Shabnam Rajendra, keeping them in dark, they will be worried. Rachna Luthra, clear their doubts. Kanaka Sadhana, by not talking about it, we will create room for more confusion. They might get wrong information from other sources. Yes, that's very true. If we do not talk about it, there will be more confusion from the children's side, and they might have wrong information from other sources. That's very true, ma'am. Agatha, ma'am, has said it's better to explain the truth in a child-friendly language. Yes, ma'am, we will surely come to this again. I think this is a very, very important part where, a lot of people think that children do not need to understand because they won't understand. But what Ma'am Agatha said is very true. We have to tell them in a language that they can understand according to the right age of the child. That's very true, ma'am. Children have the right to know actual situation. Aparajita, ma'am, said they must know about the disease in a way they understand. Somya Gupta said lack of clarity leaves a lot of space to fear. That's very true. Jagjit, ma'am, she said it can be both way round. Nimisha ma'am said the child need to know the fact about the disease. That disease is not a monster. Swati Ghata ma'am said child-friendly ways to tell need to be learned. Moni Moi Chakraborty, ma'am, she has really very nicely pointed out, will avoid anxiety and confusion, which we usually see in children when they are not being told the truth. And this is something that is very rightly pointed out. Children are mostly curious to know things, and knowing will help him understand better and be precautious. Very true. We can see lots of people who are putting out in the chat the reasons for them disagreeing. And since we won't be able to read everyone's chat, but then here we can see those who disagree, we can really see that you already have a concept of it is very important to tell the children to avoid children from having anxiety and confusion, uncertainty. We would also like to take some of the answers of those who have given agree. 45% has agreed to it. So if you could you please also give out your reasons for the reason you might be agreeing with this statement? Yeah, those 45% who has agreed to it, we would love to hear your responses also, to know your side of the story of why you did not you say that you agree that children would be unnecessarily scared if we tell them about illnesses. Okay, during this pandemic, when children are into a lot of impositions, how to handle them when health crisis is still within the family? All right, that's a question. Um, All right. So a lot of you had already given disagree, and when we see agree, we haven't had anyone who has given us any reasons on agree. Yeah, we haven't, but we can see that most of us disagree, which is true. Children need to know the truth. Children need to be told in an age appropriate way what the disease is about or what the illness is about, so that children can have a sense of understanding of what is happening around them, instead of being confused, instead of being uncertain about whatever is going around them. Thank you so much. Also, not telling them would obviously scare them. So let's go to the next question. Yeah, the next question is, children do not have the maturity to process information and understand about illness. So what do you think? Do you agree or do you disagree? Children do not have the maturity to process information and understand about illness. All right. So we have 35% who agrees with it, that children do not have the maturity to process information and understand about illness. And we have 65% of people who disagree with it. Now, I would like to request the ones who agreed, what might be your reasons why you think that children do not have the maturity to process information and understand about illness. So I would like to know your opinion, the ones who have agreed, the 35% of people who have agreed to it. I would love to know your reasons. All right, we have one here, Ritika ma'am. Children understand illness. It is just about the child-friendly language. All right. Jatinder Joshi, sir, here said, children are immature, so they should be tell the facts. Okay. Yeah, those who have agreed, I would want to know your more of your reasons. It depends on age also. It depends on the education, social, environment, status of the child. All right. Jagjit ma'am, if information being provided is not according to the age, it can scare them. All right. Yes, very much. If we talk to them in a way which is not age appropriate, and they cannot understand, like giving an information of COVID, and they cannot understand, that can really scare them. That's very true. Children understand illness and they understand the things. Okay, it depends on education and atmosphere. Children can understand, like explained in the last series, there are ways to tell them, example as a story. All right. Children have different perspective at different ages, so being multifactorial issue, we cannot say completely agree or disagree. All right. Children are smart enough to understand information, but if told the fact in right, not scary manner, I think a lot of us here, who are actually answering it, you are all answering it in a way that you are understanding that children need to be answered according to the age level. So here it's not we have seen the chats, and people who are answering are mostly answering about how it is important and how children can understand. And I think most of you are disagreeing with this fact that children do not have the maturity to process information and understand about illness. We can also see that a lot of you have wrote down in your chats that yes, age appropriate ways. How can we tell them in age appropriate ways? Maybe children who are, younger, 5 and below, how we can make use of rhymes and how we can sing songs to them and then give them the information. That's an example. And I think all of you are of the opinion that, you are also agreeing that these children do have the maturity to process information and understand about illness according to their age appropriateness, especially the information that we share. Thank you so much. Let's go to the next question. All right. Children project anxieties and worries expressed by adults around them. Agree or disagree? Children project anxieties and worries expressed by adults around them. Children project anxieties and worries expressed by adults around them. All right, we have 89% of people who agree and 11% who disagree. I would really love to also know, the ones who disagreed. I would love to know your reasons. If you could please write it in the chat box, it'll be great to know your reasons for this answer, for disagreeing to how children project anxieties and worries expressed by adults around them. Yeah. Anyone who would want to share why you disagree, you can just write it down in the chat box. Happens sometimes, not always. A learned behavior. Yeah. Children learn from adults, especially mother, father. If father shows anxiety, children also show signs of anxiety. So here we have everyone. I think most of us who are writing in the chat box are the ones who are agreeing to it. So let's just see some of the reasons why people agree, and let's just discuss more on that. They learn, Anagha ma'am said, they learn everything from the adults at home, positive and negative. Sapna Dikshit ma'am said, children are more sensitive towards feelings. Pankaj Srivastav sir said, to clear the confusing state of the children. Bhavana Prajapati ma'am said, it depends on his context and inner voice. Very interesting, ma'am. That's very true. A lot of things that children understand or internalize, it depends on the context and the inner voices that children go through. And then children read and resonate, adults stress easily. The adults around the children, basically parents, are the first teachers, and therefore they believe in them and depend on them. Parents are the role model. Children imitate the elders. Yes, a lot of children mostly imitate adults. When we see a child, when they start learning how to talk to people, how to socialize with people, or even children, the moment they are able to talk to their parents, they are playing around with their friends or with their teachers, children start imitating the elders. Children start imitating adults. It might be a good behavior, it might be a bad behavior, it might be a positive behavior, it might be a negative behavior, but children are very good with imitation. Likewise, not just with behavior or not just with external expressions, but also with internal expressions, like the way a child gets angry. If a father is very aggressive and shows the anger to a child, depending on the child's experience, there might be a child who might not show the same aggression as the father. Yes, there are cases, but there might be a chance that this child might also show the same type of aggression like the father, the same type that the father has shown in terms of his external behavior, or in terms of his verbal words that he has said. Yes, that's very true. If they express, then we know about the worries. The children learn violence from family if they get continuously exposed to that. It depends on family environment. They are very observant. They mirror the behavior and emotions of significant others around them. Yes, we should never forget that children are very observant, especially during this time of COVID, this time of stress. When children see their parents being stressed, being anxious, they see their parents, being worried, and that the children can see easily. So we should never forget how observant children are. Children are, in fact, more observant than us. Yeah, we have so many people replying here on chat, but we would like to go to the other question now, other statement. Yeah. All right. Neither the family nor the child should talk about the COVID illness once a final disclosure is made. Neither the family nor the child should talk about the COVID illness once a final disclosure is made. So after a child is being told about the COVID illness, the caretakers might just say, okay, we have already told it, we have already shared about the COVID sickness to this child. Now we don't talk about it. So how do you find it? Do you agree or do you disagree with it? Yes, Jayshree ma'am, final disclosure here meaning that, you are talking to the child and telling to the child, maybe a child has a parent who is sick in the hospital, maybe both parents sick in the hospital with COVID, and the child does not know anything about, the parents having COVID. So the guardians are the ones who are telling the child about, your parents have COVID and they have contracted the virus and they're in the hospital, they are on medication. So that's the disclosure that we are talking about here. Yeah, so we have 73% of people who disagree, and 29% who has agreed. So the final one is 71 who has disagreed and 29 who has agreed. So I would also want to know, the ones who have agreed, the 29% who has agreed, can I please also know what your reasons might be because of which you agreed to this statement that neither the family nor the child should talk about the COVID illness once a final disclosure is made? We would want to know your reasons for agreeing with it. Okay, Jatinder Joshi here says that agree because disclosure may down the moral of the child and parents. All right, agree. Discussion, Jagjit ma'am, discussion beforehand would definitely help them in taking precautions. All right. All right, now we also have Ibam Cha ma'am saying this is the R, they face the fact, so they need more of clarification and support. Kanaka ma'am said, On the contrary, we should update them on the progress and respond to the questions that the child might have, so they feel confident and are not full of anxiety. So we can see that, when a lot of people who are writing down in the chat are writing according to how they disagree with this statement that neither the family nor the child should talk about the COVID illness once the final disclosure is met. So everyone is in the, view that we should, talk more about it, even if the disclosure is made, because there will be children who would be having so many questions. Maybe a child has been told about the COVID illness, and then the child might come 2 days after and ask more questions about what will happen to the family member or their parents who are in the hospital, what will happen to the others who are, in the home, or will they also get the virus? So the child will have so many questions. So like we always say, disclosure is not always a one-off event. It takes time. So slowly by slowly, we can process it. And once the child gets to know the information, the child will be in a state where they are in a shock, especially when they do not know much about the COVID illness. They might be scared, they might be anxious, and they might not get the time to actually express themselves or even ask questions during that moment. So it's important for us to, really talk to the child through after even the final disclosure is made, so that the child can bring questions, the child can have their questions cleared, so that there's no confusion, there's no uncertainty in the mind of the child. So I think a lot of our participants here, are writing down and they're accepting it, and they're really giving the heads up to really telling the children and giving the child the time to be able to ask more questions even after the disclosure. Let's go to the next question. Yeah, let's go to the next question now. Okay. Information is just information. It is a standard set of facts to be given to everyone. Information is just information. It is a standard set of facts to be given to everyone. All right. So you can just type in click if you agree or disagree. Yeah, so we have 54% who agrees and 46 people who disagree. Now, this is the last question, so maybe we can also ask people who disagree to put it in the chat, or even if you agree, you can put, since all of us are putting it in together, and many people are agreeing on it. 54% and 46% we have, 54 for agreeing, 46 for disagree. So yeah, you can put your reasons on why you might have agreed or disagreed. Okay, Manoranjan sir said information should be authentic, verified, having credible data source. Yes, very true, sir. It is very important to have a credible information when we are giving to the children. Yes. Yeah, a lot of us are agreeing to it. So yeah, you can. Yeah, there's Dr. Priti who said disagree. The information should be age specific, what the child wants to know. Very true. Again, here, with information, information is just information, and there are some set standard for information. Maybe when we talk about information that lay people have, people who do not have any knowledge about medicine, or people who do not have any knowledge about what a virus actually is. yes, the information differs in that case. Another part is where the medical fraternity, the information that they have is a bit different again. But again, the virologists, they know more better. So every information that comes according to the gather of people that we have will be differing, especially when we come to again children. It differs a lot in the way we tell children about the information that we have. you know Also here we have some people who also uh, disagree, because any wrong info can lead to crushing people's hope. Yes, very much. That's why it's very important for us that when we are giving information to children, it should be age appropriate. Like I was just mentioning how children who are 5 to below, maybe we'll give them information through songs. We are giving them rhymes, and then we're giving them stories. Like in the last session that we give for Ani and Adu's story in our last second part of the series on anxieties. So that's how we talk to children according to age appropriate ways. Maybe 5 to 10-year-olds have a different way of talking, and then we can read them to them stories, and then they will understand better. Maybe a 10 to 15-year-old, it is a different age range, and they can maybe understand a bit more complex of what COVID is actually about. So according to the age, we can give them information. And also, while giving the information, it's very important for us to remember the truth that we are talking about. It should be the truth, so that the children might know the truth in an age appropriate manner. And also the next will be also giving them a lot of hope and reassurance. Yes, Nimisha ma'am, she said we need to have age specific criteria for the disclosure of facts. That's very true, ma'am. I think all of us do here accept that we need to reveal information to children, but then it should be in an age appropriate way. As we can see throughout this polling session, we can see that everybody has this information, and most of us do agree that children need to be told the truth. Children need to be told the truth about the COVID illness. And then that can be done in an age appropriate way. So I think that is a really great thing that most of us agree to, this kind of a methodology. There might be different methodology through which we can tell children about the illness also. So now, thank you so much for interacting with us through the polling. We have seen that all of our answers, the myths and facts. I think most of us who are connected with us, even if you agree or disagree, a lot of us have the same concept that children should be told about illness, so that they can avoid confusion, avoid uncertainty, avoid anxiety, unnecessary anxiety that creates fear in their minds, fear in their hearts, And a lot of us also agree that we need to do it according to the age appropriateness. When we are telling the truth, according to the age, we can bring in different methodologies, different techniques, so that children can know about the disease, but according to their level. So this is, I think, a very beautiful way that we can see that all of us are very like-minded in our outlook towards looking after children and actually talking to children and addressing children's issues and concerns. Yeah. So let's go forward. So with children, how do we usually respond to these worries? Children have lots of worries, and they come and ask us, especially when they do not know much about what has happened to their parents. A lot of children are not told about what happened to their parents. So, a lot of times the way we respond might be different. There are some various categories that we have listed out in this slide, and you can see, diversion, where we tell them, Mama and Papa are going to the market to get you some gifts, or your parents will definitely get better, don't worry. So we are diverting the attention of the child. Or maybe in absolute ways, we are saying that, just pray to God. No one no one knows what will happen. I'm just so worried about you. Here also, when we talk about it, maybe the child really believes it. An adult says, just pray to God, and the child really believes it. And the child is really praying for the parents to get better. And suddenly the parents don't get better. Then what will happen to the child? The child's belief that God will heal their parents will go away. So it's important for us to tell them the truth that, yes, you should pray to God, but there are times and circumstances where people don't get healed. So that's how we bring in the factor. So there's absolute answers that people give to children, which might be very dangerous for the child, especially in their faith or even with their own relationship to however they have their own religious understanding of God. Or don't cry, everything will be okay. This is something that people have been saying, not just for illnesses, but a lot of things to children, which is very absolute. And then the next is assurances. Leave all the worries to us. You don't worry about anything. So we give them assurances that it's okay. We'll take care of it. You don't have to worry about anything. But that does not stop children from getting worried. It still is there. The worry is still there in their mind when it's not dealt with. Avoidance. When children are asking us so many questions and then we try to avoid it, maybe it's because we have different priorities or we are very busy, but children often are are not given the right answers and they are being avoided by saying, you see how difficult things are, please be quiet and we are tired, or you're not so young anymore, please be a little more responsible, don't create more problems. So here we can also see sometimes with our adults' attitude of telling children, that you're not young anymore, please be a little more responsible. But on the other hand, sometimes children are told, you're too young to be told this right now, you can't understand it. So that also creates a lot of confusion among children and also a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty. The questions are not answered. Now, who do they go to ask these questions? Who will answer their questions? And also complete hopelessness. No one knows. Your father may also die. Where there is no hope and reassurance for children, where there is no hope that, okay, things might get better, but, really telling them that the truth, but also giving them hope and reassurances, which really do lack in a lot of times when the children are being told the truth. And this might be a very dangerous way, diversion, absolute ways of answering them, assurances, avoidance, complete hopelessness. This might be a very dangerous way of, answering children, because this might create more confusion in the child, more uncertainty in the child. That's why it's so important to respond in the right way, in the age appropriate way, with the truth to the child, so that the child can have an idea of what is going around and also prepare themselves to cope with whatever might come. So these are not the best ways we can respond to children. So these are not the best ways we can tell the children, that this thing will go away or COVID will go away. So we can have other ways we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about some few steps through which we can tell children about illnesses, so that we would not have to make them worry, but we would clarify to them things that they're not uncertain about. They're uncertain about the parents, they're uncertain about the illness, they do not know what to do. So instead of responding them in this kind of categories, we can change our responses according to how the children may understand. And let's also discuss, a few of the barriers to disclosure. The reason why people are finding it difficult to disclose it to children is also because it makes them uncomfortable. It makes us uncomfortable because we don't know what to say, how to say it. And we feel scared because we also do not have answers. We do not know what will happen tomorrow. And most of the time we assume that children will not understand us when we are explaining to them that we also do not have answers. We feel like we have to be protective towards children and we want to save children from being upset. We make predictions regarding children's reactions and feel being silent will be the best way to avoid dealing with their emotional upset. And then we fear that it might further trigger them. So these are some of the barriers that we can see And we would all, in the further slides and in the further session, we'll be working towards and discussing to you how best we can inform these children about illnesses and how best we can disclose about illnesses to children. We always have to remember that children are very curious. They have lots of questions that they want to ask. And then they want to know. No, not just they want to know, but they need to know the truth. It is their right. They have the right to know it. And also when we come to letting the children know the principles of disclosure, especially with illness, it is not a one-off event like I've already mentioned. It does not start a moment for 1 hour you told the child about COVID or any illness, and then it's done. It's not like that. It takes time. It takes time, and it takes a frequency, and slowly we take it to disclose the illness to child. As also, the first thing that we have to remember is we have to remember what the child knows about the disease or what the child knows about the illness, which is such an important factor to know where the child is at and then start from there. So like we were discussing, like all of you have already shared about the age appropriateness of the information, which is so important. And also when we are talking about the age appropriateness, not forgetting to tell the child the truth. So it has to be the truth. It should not be lies, because when we give lies to children, they'll hear from different sources, different things, and they'll be more confused. My mom, my auntie said this, my grandmother said this. Now my auntie is saying this. So people will have different versions, and so it's very important for us to tell the truth to the child without any lies, according to an age appropriate way, and also giving hope and reassurance. So this is something which is so very important for us. In the second series also, we have talked about the concept of talking about illness, the framework of talking about illness, which is also the same as this. So let us also look at some cases to understand the need for disclosure. So we will look at some cases where we can see, why there's a need of disclosure. And in this one, it will be like an activity. So I would like to request you to make use of the chat box and please write down your opinions. So this is a case of a 7-year-old child, Lulu. Her parents are both hospitalized due to COVID. She is living with her grandparents. She has been told about her parents. She was told that they had gone away for a business trip. So she hasn't been told that her parents are hospitalized. And then recently she has been asking her grandparents how long it will take for them to come back. She has asked her grandfather to call her parents to talk to them. And then she has been clingy and crying, asking for her parents. She looks outside every day to see if her parents are coming. Her grandparents are confused as to how to break the news to the child. So what will be some of the questions or confusions and thoughts in Lulu's mind, according to you? What might be some of the questions that Lulu has in regards to the parents, in regards to the story that has been given to her about her parents going away for a business trip? So what kind of questions might Lulu have? Yes, Savannah Kumar sir has said, why parents left me? Very true. You can please put the questions in the chat box. We would love to have you participate with us. Am I so bad that my parents left me? Very true. Where did they go? Why can't I talk to them on the phone? Why my parents aren't contacting me? Jagjit ma'am says, feeling of insecurity. Deepmala Shukla ma'am says, why my parents leave me alone? Padma Devi ma'am said, what we should convey that they are sick. Yes, we should. Monmai Chakraborty ma'am says, are they angry with me? Yes, the child might be feeling that, why aren't they talking to me? They are on a business trip, so they should have talked to me. I'll call them on the phone, but why aren't they talking to me on the phone also? Did I do something? Are they angry with me? Parents not love me. Yes, parents do not love me. That might be what Lulu is thinking, because the parents have not talked to her. The parents are not eager to even meet her, according to her, because she doesn't know about the situation. What has happened to my parents? Oh no, why are they not calling me? Before, when they go out, they used to call me. What happened now? Maybe my parents don't love me. That's why they are not coming back. Yes, this might be a very big confusion for children, and especially children who have been so attached to parents, who have always stayed with their parents. They might be thinking, where are my parents? And especially children who are not very sure of, who are going through a lot of different kinds of issues, like their issues of or their own self-esteem. They might be thinking that don't my parents love me, or why are they not coming back? They might be scared. Attachment issues also. I hope they are okay. Why they left me alone? They are bad. Where are my parents? Why have they not talked to me? When my parents will come? Is it my fault? Yes, some children might be thinking, did I do something? Is it my fault that my parents are not coming home early, or they are on a business trip and they're not calling me? Are they angry with me? Yes. So there are so many questions that children ask, children have in their minds, so many confusions and so many thoughts that they're struggling with, which is why it's so important to disclose to them about any illness the parents might have, and telling them that, yes, your parents are in the hospital, but in an age appropriate way. We have so many of you giving writing down in the chat box, yeah, are my parents safe? Feeling lonely, uncertainty feelings will develop. Yes, that's the reason why disclosure is so important, because there will be so much of uncertainty. They have not talked to their parents, so they don't know what to make of it. They might, these children might also have great relationships with their parents, but there might be children who do not have great relationships with their parents. There might be children whose parents also, might not have great relationship with each other. So we do not know the context of where the children comes from. So it's very important for us to understand why it's so important to tell children about illnesses, and about telling the facts about what's happening to their parents, or to their near and dear ones who they are really close to the attachment figures especially. Yeah, we have so much of answers in the chat box. Her inner feelings could also be whether grandparents are lying to her. Yes, children are observant. Children do know. Children can sense. It's not that children are unaware of things that are going around. Maybe the child might be thinking that, yes, my grandparents are lying to me. Where are my parents? The child might be thinking, especially if it has been from a long time, so many days that they haven't seen the parents, they haven't talked to their parents. Then the child will start getting suspicious and thinking that, yes, my grandparents might be lying. Lulu is very much worried. Yes, she is very worried. She's anxious. She doesn't know what to do. There is uncertainty. There's confusion. There is a lot of, thoughts going on through her mind. Imagine her sitting by the, sitting outside or standing outside, looking and waiting for her parents, thinking about when will my parents come. That's the anxiety that the child is feeling. Yes, Lulu will not trust her grandparents. Yeah. Thank you so much, dear friends, for all your chats. We have had so many people who have given the questions. There's so many questions. So now we can see, even when we all have brought out so many questions, now we can see that children will have so many questions. We as adults, we can also understand their point of view, and we can come up with so many questions what children might have. And yes, it is so important to disclose it to the children about illness, because of these reasons, of the reasons why you have all mentioned so many questions about the uncertainty the children feel, about the fear that these children have, about the confusion that these children have. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining, for being with us, and really supporting us and chatting with us, giving your answers to us. We do have, yeah, this line. We also had some things which Lulu might be thinking. Why am I not allowed to see my parents? Maybe Lulu is staying with her grandparents. So she's thinking, I want to go back home. I want to eat food cooked by my mother. It's not just about the anxiety. It's not just about the feeling of confusion, but also the feeling of attachment that they have with their mother. I want to eat food cooked by my mother. Those things. And also with self-care activities, maybe a 7-year-old, maybe she is very familiar with self-care activities, but there are some children who are not. Where are my parents? Will my parents never come back? I want to go out with my parents. I miss my parents. What if grandparents are lying? When will my parents come back? So these are some questions that are revolving in Lulu's mind, the thoughts that she is struggling with. So it's so important. These are the reasons that you gave in the chat box, the questions that you gave in the chat box are the reasons why it's so important to disclose information about illness to children. Another case study that we would want to do here also again, we will request you to give some of the thoughts that the child feels. This case study, 13-year-old Panna's mother was infected with the virus. In a few days, Panna's mother's infection got worse and she sent Panna away to her friend's house. Panna was writing her online exam when she was told that her mother had to be taken to the hospital. Panna talks to her mother over phone every day. Her mother says, I'll be home soon. I miss you. It's already been 16 days. Panna's aunt tells her not to worry. Panna does not like the aunt's place. Her kids are too loud and she feels it's very insensitive of them to always be loud and noisy when she is worried. So even here, what will be some of the questions, confusions, and thoughts in Panna's mind? What do you think? Our participants in the Zoom portal or even in YouTube, you can please write down your answers in the chat box. We would love to know from you what might be the questions that Panna might be struggling with. What might be the thoughts, the confusions that Panna is struggling with? Yeah, mother is selfish. She left me, says Savana Kumar. Moni Moi, ma'am said, will my mother return? Very true. The child will be so confused. The child is uncertain of what's happening to her mother. She might be knowing a little bit, but she'll be so scared and she'll be thinking, will my mother return? A fear of uncertainty, fear. How is mom doing? Why my mother go away from me, especially when the child does not know why the mother has gone away from them, when the illness has not been disclosed to the child. If her mom is really going to be fine, yes, she'll be worried if her mom is really going to be fine. Hope mom is fine. When will she get well? I want to go home, God. Please get well soon, my mom. Okay. My mother did love me when she come to me. So this might be a child reminiscing the moments, imagining the moments that she has spent with her mother. She's missing her mother and she's thinking about the time that she has spent lovingly with her mother. Is mom really safe? Yeah. There might be a question also, that a child might be thinking, is mom really safe? Worried for her mother. Where is my mother? She doesn't love me, especially when this child might not have talked to her mother for a long time. She might be really thinking she doesn't love me, especially this child if they don't know that the mother has gone to the hospital. My aunt's children do not understand my worries. Yes, very much. The child will be feeling like nobody understands them, especially in their position, because their position is a position where not everybody is in. Will my mother return safely? My mother does not love me. They would demand to see the patients. Wants to know when will my mother return? Yes, when will my mother return? Well, when will she come back? When will I go home? When will I go home and stay with my mother? When will my mother cook food for me? How long should I stay here? Yes, very much. Especially if she is not, like we said in the case, she's not very happy staying with her aunt. She'll be thinking, when should I? How long should I stay here? When should I go home? I want to go home. Mother, is mother really safe? How is my mother in the hospital? When my mother came back, my mother is not thinking about my happiness. Mother ignored a child. Okay, uh, my mother should let me with her. I don't like it here and she knows it. Yes, children will be thinking, I wish my mother could let me stay with her. Is she being taken care of? Yes, worry about the mother. Is she being taken care of? Why? Yeah, why this aunt doesn't understand me? uh, yeah, so these are also some of the uh, questions that everyone has. What happens to my mother? This is a question that everybody, a lot of people has given in the chat box. Worry for the mother. It's not just the confusion and the questions in the child's mind, but a lot of worry, and a lot of worry creates a lot of anxiety for the child. A lot of worry creates a lot of anxiety for the child. And then she might also be worried that mother might die. Yes, especially hearing from a lot of people in the news and everywhere, child might be worried. We have so many people answering and so many questions that this Yes, here Sunita ma'am said 13-year-old is mature to understand the gravity of the illness. She'll ask mom to take care and positive mom will be okay. Yes, a 13-year-old might be matured also, but not every 13-year-old would be matured. It depends. Yes, it always depends on the context of the child and how the information is given to the child. And every child is different. Every child internalizes things differently. Some are, a bit more sensitive than others. So it is, we are not very sure of, how a certain child would behave. Some children are, yes, often very mature. They do understand, but there will be some children who are not matured enough, and they would not be able to understand the gravity of the illness, especially when there is no disclosure, when the child is not being fed the right facts, especially about the illness according to the age that the child is. But yes, some children who are matured enough, they'll be thinking about their mom. They'll be telling the mom to take care and be and will be really positive about their mom being okay. But a lot of children, they might be scared. They might not understand. Not every 13-year-old will have the same maturity to understand illness, or maybe they are not given the right information. Feeling of hopelessness, yes, because she cannot do anything. Helplessness, feelings of helplessness. Yes, we have so many of you who have already given so many questions. And so it's the same thing, with all of these questions that is coming around the child. We can all see how disclosure is so important for children, because as all of you have given so many questions, if you are able to come up with so many questions, imagine the child who is going through it. Imagine the child who is going through that current circumstances. How many more thoughts are there in the child's mind? Maybe, will my mother die? I wish I were sick instead of my mother. I hate my aunt and her kids. They are so insensitive. That might be the child's thought. I want to go home. That definitely might be the child's thought. What will I do without my mother? The fear that what if something happens to my mother? What will I do without her? If I were old, I would have taken care of her. The helplessness and the hopelessness the child feels to not be able to take care of the mother. What if I never see her again? The fear in her of not seeing her mother again, the uncertainty that she has. So these are, some of the reasons why it's so important to talk about disclosure to children, to talk about the illness to the children, especially in an age appropriate way, with all the truth and facts. and also giving them hope and reassurances. So with hope and reassurances also, we'll be talking to you and discussing with you about how we can give it to children, about the disease we'll already discuss, and also about hope and reassurances. So I will give the remaining of the time to my colleague Priti. She will take us forward.
Thank you very much. And to understand the need for disclosure, let us examine two more cases. And then I could read in the chat box, a lot of you were asking that, yes, making disclosure is very, very important, but we do not know how to do it. So in the later part of this series, this part, we are going to discuss some scripts. We are going to develop some responses on how to disclose about illness, how to talk about the COVID disease to children. So please stay tuned, and let's see the next case. This is a case of 16-year-old girl, Meeta, who lives in a childcare institution. She was placed in the institution 1 year ago after the death of her mother. Her father lives away. He's remarried. One day, Meeta receives a call from the hospital at the institution saying that because of the COVID illness, the father is really critical and she needs to be at the hospital because there's no one else to take care of him. Meeta has not heard from her father. Now, Meeta goes to the hospital, asks for the permission, goes to the hospital. When she reaches the hospital, the doctor tells her that she needs to contact and bring in some adult. She has no family, so she calls the counselor. Her father is very, very critical. The organs have started to fail. The counselor brings Meeta back. Some arrangements are being made. She has no idea what. Now, what would be the thoughts and the confusions and the questions in Meeta's mind, who suddenly got news of this father after a year? There's no mother, there's no family. What would be Meeta's thoughts? What would be her confusions? So please participate on the Zoom chat box and YouTube, and I'm reading your responses. What can I do for my father? I don't know. What can I do? I feel so helpless. I'm just so helpless. I'm very confused. I don't know what to do. I might lose my father. I've heard people are dying of this disease. How can I take care of my father? This counselor would not tell me anything. I don't know what to do anymore. Will my father also die? I've heard people are dying of this disease. Why it happened to me? My mother passed away, and now this father, he's also unwell. I'll be an orphan. Will I be an orphan? What my counselor did, she's not telling me. Did she take care of my father? I have no idea. I'm such an unlucky child. Okay. What will I do now? Is the counselor telling me the truth? I feel so lonely. At least there was a father somewhere. So what if we were not talking? It depends on her relationship with the father. Okay. If he has remarried and there was a bad relationship, she might not even care. She'd be like, okay, अब मैं अकेली हूं, मेरा कोई और नहीं है. Why can't my father being a child? Okay. Will I also get this disease? I've heard a lot of people are getting it. Now it's my father. Now will I also get the disease? How can I help my father? What is my fault? Why is this happening to me? First, it was my mother. Then I was sent to this institution for no fault of mine. And now it's my father. Why would this happen to me? My future is a question mark. I don't know. What is my stepmom doing? Where is she? She was supposed to be with my father. Where's she gone? Who will take care of me now? Why only me? There's so many other people. Why is it only happening to me? What will happen to my studies? Okay, so many questions, and I can see a lot of questions on YouTube as well. So these are the thoughts. Abruptly, I had no idea. I'm living in an institution. I have no idea what kind of, I don't have much idea about this disease. All of a sudden, I get information about this father. I've not spoken to him for the last 1 year. I have no family. He's the only one. And suddenly I get to know that he's unwell and I'm the only one who can take care of him. How can I manage the situation? I hate this life. What is this life? Okay, every day some problem. I wish my mother was there. Had she been there, I would not have been in this situation. Will I always be alone? So thank you very much, friends. Is it safe here? If someone starts using me, okay, is it even safe now that they know that my father is not there, my mother is not there? Would people take advantage of me knowing this? Okay, very interesting responses. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. And I think these are very, very interesting responses, and you are absolutely correct. Abruptly receiving the news, and there's always so much fear, there's so much anxiousness, there's so much unpredictability about the disease. So how can I trust people? There's still responses coming in. So these are some of the thoughts. There can be different possibilities, different contexts, and children in different contexts without the information. One vulnerability being superimposed by another. What could be their thoughts? Why is this happening to me? In summary, this is all what you said. I don't want to talk to anyone anymore. I want to just get out of this institution, take care of my father. I wish I was out of this institution. No one understands me. What should I do? So the sense of helplessness. How can I'm also responsible? I got this information. I can't do anything because they wouldn't let me out. Is my father alive? Is he dead? Would it happen to me? Who will give me this information? Can I rely on the information I'm getting from people? So the thoughts, the anxiousness, we are only feeding into the worries when we do not address, when we do not provide the authentic information, when we do not have a conversation with children about these sicknesses, when we do not try and understand what their vulnerability is, what their situation is, and what position they are in. So I would take you through another case, and we would again discuss some of the thoughts and inner voices. So now, again, be very, very quick and type in your responses. 15-year-old Raghu, his mother is at home with him, and his father is really unwell. He has COVID disease and he's in the hospital. It has already been 4 days. Mother is really worried, very anxious mother, and she's crying all the time. Raghu has been very quiet. He's been asking the mother, when will my father come back? What has happened? Is everything okay? The mother just tears up every time this question is asked. And Raghu can listen to the response, can overhear the conversations that she's having with her brother, with other family members over the phone. Other people telling her, don't worry, everything will be all right. He's been Googling and YouTubing all the footages about this disease, what disease is about, what is happening in India, what is happening to people around him. And now he gets a call from the grandmother saying that, you know what has happened, your mother is really upset, and, please be responsible, please take care of her. You are a very old, mature child, and, it's your responsibility. You are the man in the house now. So please make sure that your mother is comfortable. He has been acting with responsibly, with maturity, his grandmother, because after the conversation. So now he is sitting with all these thoughts. He has scrolled through all the resources that are possible. He's trying his best. What would be the thoughts in Raghu's mind? I would like to know from you, and I invite you to please type in your responses now so that I can read them out. Will my father die? What will happen? There's so much information. Everybody is dying. Will my father also die? What will happen to me and my mother if he dies? Okay, sudden shock. How am I supposed to take care of my mother? I'm still in school. What can I do? How can I help my father? Will I have to earn? Who will earn now? Will my mother earn? How will we? Okay. He is pressurized. He's feeling all the pressure. He's tensed. He's anxious. All these thoughts are making him anxious, tensed. He's feeling all that pressure. Will this wave kill us all too? I've seen on YouTube. It's horrible. Will it kill us too? I'm blank. I don't know what to do. Why am I not young like my... Okay. I'm too young. Should I go to work? Did grandma mean that I'll have to take up the responsibilities? I'm scared. I'm not ready for all of this. Well, I'm responsible now. To whom should I call for help? Who will help me in all of this? Can I share my worries with my friends? And friends with adolescents, with children in this age group. A lot of information come from the peer group as well. And that is why it's even more important to give authentic information. Because there are a lot of discussions that happen between the friends also. There are a lot of perspectives that they build from these conversations. Fearful and worried. So what should I do now? So yes, my mother, this is time, emotional vulnerability, okay, not confident, no conviction how to deal with mother. I don't know what to do for my mother. She's crying all the time. If I would have been older, maybe I could have done something. I'm so young, what to do? My mother is hiding. Is everything okay? Why is my mother crying all the time? What is she hiding? Why is she not answering my questions? Has something happened to father? Will he die? Will everything ever be okay again? Will we happily live ever after? Okay. God, please help my father. So in a lot of these unpredictable times, you would see a lot of things. Children who are not religious believers, they might also in these times, you would see that they would turn to God, they would pray, they would hope for things to get better. So these are some of the things you might see when the child is really anxious and the situation is really uncertain. I'm missing my father. Why can't my mother share her worries with me? Why is she not telling me? Who is she talking to? Who will help me and my mother? Okay. So thank you very much. I think these are a lot of responses and we understand what kind of confusions and questions and thoughts are there in children's minds. So to summarize all of this, to summarize all of your responses, I hope the virus goes away. Why is nobody telling me what has happened? What if something happens to my mother and me also? What if, how will I take care of my mother now? How will I take care of my family now? I hope my father comes back. I hope, are we all going to die? Okay, I heard that the neighbor died. A lot of people who go to hospital don't come back. So will my father come back? Is everybody going to die? Everybody who's in hospital, is it very serious? Who will take care of us now? So we have more or less discussed all kinds of things. And remember that children, we often think, we make this assumption that children are not understanding. They can sense the anxiety of adults around them. They are overhearing your conversations. They are looking at you. They know something is wrong. Saying that, please do not worry, everything will be okay, would not help. Children feel responsible. Children think very deeply. They're deep observers. So that is why, dear friends, in times of uncertainty, when there's so much uncertainty already, having the right information, constantly staying connected, being updated, having conversation about these sicknesses helps children feel in control and thus reduce the anxiety. And that is why before they go to unauthentic sources, before they build their own narratives about the disease, about the circumstances, about the situations, it is best to have the conversation. We will tell you how. And before we go there, let us also see, after examining all of these uh, cases, why it is important to make disclosure. Because unprocessed interactions, when you remain silent, when you just give information, but you do not process it, you do not allow for questions, you do not encourage, you do not attend to the questions and worries, you worsen the anxieties. And that is why whatever information the child has, processing the information, providing the right information, not remaining silent, not diverting their attention from the issue, because they still know that somebody is in the hospital. They want to know what is happening, what will happen. So these methods don't work. And therefore, it is very important to give authentic information, to process the information. Negative thoughts, all these thoughts that children have, Lulu, Panna, Raghav, and other children similarly in similar situations, these thoughts are there. These thoughts become negative, they become deeper if we do not address these thoughts, if we do not address these worries, if we do not give them hope, if we do not reassure them, if we don't give them the hope that things are going to be okay, if you do not tell them give them the right information. So then thoughts like, everybody who goes to the hospital will die. Will my father also die? So these are the thoughts that remain in children's heads. And these are the thoughts that cause worries and anxieties. Half answers, brief responses. I'm full of thoughts, but they're in the hospital and they're being taken care of. Please do not worry about it. Things will be okay. How will things be okay? Please explain. Practically explain how things would be okay. I don't believe it. I don't see how things will be okay. Brief responses are not helpful. Silence is not helpful. Half answers are not helpful. So we need to have interactions. We need to address questions. We need to have detailed, we need to provide them information, enough information for them to feel all right and in control. Generalized sweeping responses, absolute responses, don't worry. Yeah, they will come back. So these responses also are not very helpful for children. Children then, in the absence of information or when there is lack of authentic information, they generalize, they make their own narratives, they think, they worry, and it is very important, therefore, dear friends, to make disclosure to children the right way, to provide information, to constantly address, to be connected, to communicate, to create a culture of conversation and interactions, of sharing. So we are going to talk about a lot of this today. And I saw in the responses that somebody said that a lot of you said that information should be age appropriate. And those of you who watched our last session, you saw that we used the COVID story, Anni and Addu story, to explain COVID to children. Well, telling stories can also be, when you have questions like, how can I talk? What should I say? Where should I start? Stories can also be an excellent medium to get started with children. So how do we talk to children? I'm going to play a short story for you, When Spots Went Away. Watch carefully and then we come back for a discussion. So, spots. I request you to watch the story, think of questions that you may ask children, think of things that you may talk about using the story, and we will come back for a discussion after we watch the video.
Called When. Hello everyone, welcome to the next part of our very special Children's Day series that we are doing just for our very dear and much loved children. Today's story is called When Spots Went Away, and we'll know who is very soon. Tariq was very fond of going to the aquarium. Although he was only 8 years old, he knew a lot about fish. Not just fish, he knew a lot about other marine animals as well, that is, creatures who live in the sea. The aquarium was his favorite place. He could spend hours there watching the big fish and the small ones, colorful ones and exotic ones. Since he lived near the sea, he would often go to the seaside to see dolphins jump out of the sea, and he was amazed by the speed with which crabs would crawl out of the waves and bury themselves in sand and swim out again. Have any of you been to the seaside or been bitten by a crab? Ooh, that's painful, huh? He had also seen TV shows of well-known sea travelers and loved their fish stories. He often dreamt of having a small aquarium at home. But times were tough for his family, especially now as they were saving money to get house repairs done. So Tariq did not feel that it would be the right time to ask his parents to buy him an aquarium, get him fish. Then one day, his uncle Ahmed visited them from abroad. He brought many gifts and goodies. He spent a lot of time with Tariq and was proud to see just how much knowledge Tariq had about various fish and their habitat and their diet. The day before Uncle Ahmed left, he came to Tariq's home holding a large object covered with brown paper. "What is it?" asked Tariq curiously. "Aha! It's a surprise for you. Let us open it. I believe you will love it," said Uncle Ahmed. Uncle Ahmed placed the object on the floor with a twinkle in his eye and dramatically opened the paper covers. Just like maybe some of you have done with a present on your birthday or Christmas. Tariq nearly stopped breathing, for there it was, a round glass bowl with 2 goldfish in it. Tariq's happiness knew no bounds. He hugged his uncle with tears in his eyes. "Thank you, uncle. This is what I have wanted for so long." Tariq read up on how to take care of goldfish, what to feed them, how to aerate the fish bowl, and so on. He asked his dad for some money to buy fish food and rushed to the market to get it. That night, he fed the fish and laughed as he saw them gobbling up the pellets. He made his family laugh by imitating the way the goldfish puckered their mouths to eat and breathe. Do you know how to make fishy mouths, fishy faces? Try it, just like Tariq. He awoke in excitement each morning. His first thought was for his new pets, and he rushed to the fish bowl and was happy to greet his 2 dear fish. He tried to tell them apart. He noticed that one was a little larger and the other had a small black marking on the tail. He named the larger one Goldie and the spotted one Spots. Every night and morning, it was his joy to feed his fish and see them swim and play. Over time, Tariq decided to decorate his fish bowl with small toy plants and rocks and colored stones, arranging them to form caves and passages, just like they have in aquariums, which maybe some of you have seen. His 2 fish companions, Goldie and Spots, loved swimming through the passages in and out of the caves, and Tariq loved watching their swimming movements. Then one day, when Tariq went to feed his fish, he noticed that Spots looked a little dull. He was not swimming as fast as he usually did, and he did not seem to be very hungry either. Perhaps he was just tired today and did not want to eat, thought Tariq. But Tariq was also starting to worry about his pet. What could be the matter with Spots? He was always active and playful. I hope he will be all right, thought Tariq. The next day, Tariq's mother called the animal doctor, someone who knew all about the sicknesses of animals. The doctor told Tariq that Spots was very sick and that he would try his best to cure him. He also gave Spots some medicine. "Will Spots be all right?" "I want him to get well," said Tariq, very worried now. "I hope so," said the doctor. The next morning, Tariq ran to the fish bowl to see if Spots was better. Through sleepy eyes, he saw Goldie swimming around and felt relieved. But then he realized he could not see Spots. He peered closely and found Spots floating at the top of the bowl. Spots did not appear to be swimming or breathing. Tariq quickly scooped him out with the net and tried to coax him to breathe by gently prodding him and gently blowing near his mouth. Spots still refused to move or respond. In panic, Tariq cried out for his parents, "Mummy, Papa, what's happened to Spots?" They also tried to see if they could revive Spots, but Spots was dead. Tariq could not believe what had happened. His fish friend was gone. Why had it happened? How had it happened? And how was Goldie feeling? Goldie was swimming alone and appeared to be looking for his companion. Tariq was very sad and shed many tears. He still fed and cared for Goldie regularly, although he didn't rush to the fish tank as he used to earlier. But he also spent more time near the fish tank looking at Goldie. I hope nothing happens to Goldie, he thought. Tariq continued to feed Goldie, but could not forget Spots. But why did Spots go away? He cried. Spots was sick, and although the doctor tried his best, some sicknesses are hard to cure, said his father. Will Goldie also get sick now and die and leave me? Asked Tariq. No, not necessarily. Goldie is well and healthy, so she should survive, said his mother. Did it happen because I didn't take good enough care of Spots? Maybe it is my fault that he got sick, said Tariq, starting to cry again. Of course not, dearest, said his mother, hugging Tariq. You took the best care possible of Spots. Remember how you have been feeding him and cleaning his tank all these weeks. You never forgot your fish friends, and Spots knew how much you cared for him. It was not your fault that he got sick and died. Do you think Spots knew that? Asked Tariq worriedly. Yes, he did. He knew how much you cared about him, said his mother firmly. It is not our fault when sad things like this happen. Animals and people get very sick sometimes, and we don't always know why. Even the doctors don't. Some days later, when Uncle Ahmed called from abroad to ask how the fish were, Tariq tearfully told him what had happened. Never mind, my dear. Remember, you still have Goldie, and I know that you really love and care for your fish friends. And I visit next month, we shall go and choose another fish friend or companion for Goldie. So over time, although Tariq still missed Spots and was sad sometimes, he continued to take good care of Goldie as he eagerly awaited Uncle Ahmed's next visit. So that is the story about Tariq and his pet fish, Goldie and Spots. Today's story, my friends, had some parts to it that were a little sad, right? Sometimes we all lose loved ones, maybe family members, they may be friends, they may be pets like Tariq had, because they get sick or die or go away so that we don't see them again. When that happens, we feel really sad. We miss them, we think as we did together, we wish they would come back, and that's natural because we really love this person or this pet. It's natural to feel sad and to cry, to want them back, right? We've all done that sometimes. But just like Tariq's mummy said to him, you remember about Spots? It is not our fault when some of these sad or difficult things happen. You know, when somebody gets sick or somebody dies, you know, these are just things that sometimes happen. It's never our fault. So, what do you think we can say to Tariq to help him to feel better? I'm sure many of you have many ideas for it, right? And here are some of our ideas on what we could tell Tariq. First is that it's okay to cry and be sad. We all would be if we lost people or lost our pets. What else could we say to Tariq? Another idea. We could ask Tariq what his favorite memory is about Spots, and maybe tell him that every time he remembers Spots and starts to feel sad, he remembers that favorite memory instead. You know how it is, right? When we think of our favorite things and our favorite memories, we actually feel a little better and a little happier. So when we think of people we've lost, we start to feel a little blue and sad. Think of the good times and the good things, and know that just like Tariq's mummy said about Spots, remember how she said that Spot always loved Tariq and knows that Tariq loved him. I think that our loved ones always know, even now, wherever they are, that we really love them. You know, they really loved us. And just because they are not there and we cannot see them anymore or be with them anymore, that doesn't mean that they're not there. They're actually there. Where are they? They're in our hearts and in our minds, and they will always be there. And we will always love them. So, what do you think Spots may be saying to Tariq from wherever he is now? Where is Spots now? Maybe he's with God. Maybe he's in heaven. Maybe he's high up in the sky and is a star now. Maybe he's a tree. Maybe he's a flower. But wherever he is, you know, and whatever Tariq believes about where he is, I'm pretty sure that Spots is looking down at Tariq and saying, "Hey buddy, we had a great time together. You, me and Goldie. And I want you to know that I know how much you loved me and how much you took care of me. And I hope you will get another fish friend to be with Goldie and you. And I know that you will look after him just the way you looked after me." So, when we feel sad and think of our loved ones whom we have lost, remember the good times and our favorite memories, that they will always love us just as we always love them. So thank you very much for listening in today, and we will come back next.
So, friends, this was the story of Spots. When Spots went away, the story is about a sick fish who dies. And you may use this story with children to start the discussion about sickness, death. You can use the story. It is available on our YouTube channel, and we are going to put the link here. At the end of the story, there were several questions. There was some processing. In addition to those, you may also ask children and use the questions. Who was Spots? Why was Spots so special to Tariq? How did Tariq feel when Spots went away? What happened to Spots? Do you think Tariq loved Spots and took care of him? Do you think Spots went away because of Tariq? What did Tariq's parents tell him when he was worrying about Goldie losing Spots? When he was worried about also losing Goldie? How did Tariq deal with the sadness? Did Tariq feel better in the end? So you may use some of your own questions. You may use the questions at the end of the story. You may use some of these questions. When we talked about age-appropriate information, we were particularly talking about younger children, and you may. As we move forward, we are going to talk about, we are going to provide you a script, a basic response script, a suggestive script that you may use while you are trying to talk to children about sickness, about COVID, about health. So the script is essentially in 6 steps, and I'm going to take you through each step. The first one being health and sickness. So when we want to disclose, when we want to talk about COVID, illness due to COVID, COVID disease, it is best to not overwhelm the child by giving them information. All of a sudden, we can go one step at a time, and we may start the conversation by talking about health and sickness. So initially, you can start by talking about what health actually means, and you can say, this is a suggestive script, and you may develop and use your own. You may use this as a reference and modify it as per your own context. We say we are healthy when we feel like we can eat well, we can sleep, we can study well, when we feel good. We do not want to do, when we feel like doing things that we like, when we feel good and we feel sick. We say we are unwell when we do not feel good. When we don't feel like eating so much, when we are unable to eat, we are unable to sleep, when we don't feel like doing things that we usually enjoy. So the first step to talking about COVID disease, this could be the entry point where you talk about health first, when you tell them about what health actually means and what being unwell could look like. As you proceed further, you can also introduce the concept of big and small sicknesses, which means that you can tell children that there are all kinds of sicknesses. Some sicknesses are serious and some can be dealt with at home easily, and it's easy to recover from these sicknesses. So, for example, you may say to the child that, well, sometimes when we do not feel well, we take medicine. Like when we have a cough, when we have a cold, when we have bad stomach because we have eaten something wrong, when we have a headache, when there's a toothache, etc. And these sicknesses are small sicknesses. We take medication and these sicknesses go away. You may then also explain the concept of big sicknesses to children. But sometimes, even when with medicines, even with medication, people have to go to hospital because they need extra help, they need extra care, they need special attention, and to keep themselves healthy. These are usually people with big sicknesses. These big sicknesses may not go away so easily, and they may continue for a long time. So when we have a big sickness, we have to go to the doctor. We take medication that can go on for a long time, maybe for a lifetime sometimes. If you stop the medication, if these people who have big sicknesses, they stop the medication, they become sick, they don't feel so well, they don't feel healthy. Some of the big sicknesses are diabetes, heart diseases, respiratory diseases, cholesterol, when you have high blood pressure, maybe, diabetes, fatty liver, kidney stones. So these are some of the big sicknesses, and cold, cough, these are headaches, these are smaller sicknesses. Once you've spoken to children about health and sickness, once you've explained that there are different kinds of sicknesses, not all sicknesses are very, very serious, then you can start by talking about COVID as a sickness. It is best to first understand what information does a child already have? How much does the child already know about COVID sickness? So you may start the conversation by just saying, so you must have heard many things about coronavirus, maybe over a phone call or from your classmates, maybe from your friends, on the television, at home when we were having conversation the other day, maybe, or in the newspaper. And you must be having a lot of questions about it. What is this virus? Who is this virus? Where is this virus? Where has it come from? When will this virus leave us alone? Will it ever go away? Will things ever be the same? So all of these questions. Well, to start, we can start by just addressing some of the very basic questions, and you may then say, well, corona is a newly discovered virus. A virus is a very, very tiny creature, invisible to the eye. You can't see it. It makes people sick. It causes a disease called the COVID disease. And you may also use the Anni Addu story that we used in our last session. It is available on our YouTube channel. at this point to also have some discussion with children to explain this better. When someone gets COVID, someone who has got COVID-19 or coronavirus infection may show symptoms like that of common flu. Sometimes they may or may not have any symptoms at all. So they may have cough, they may find it difficult to breathe, they may have fever, they may have body pain or cold. The coronavirus can spread while coughing, while sneezing, through direct contact with the person who has COVID, or by even being around the person who has COVID. There is no particular kind of person who gets sick with the COVID disease. Anyone can get it. If it is a boy, girl, uncle, auntie, grandma, anyone, even children may sometimes get it. But I can tell you who's more likely to get this disease. Although all of us are at risk, but there are some people who are more likely to get infected, who are more likely to get the COVID disease. These people are people who are very, very old because their bodies are weak. People who generally have weak bodies, who are not so healthy. People who have big sicknesses. So their bodies are already trying to fight these big sicknesses. So body has become weak. So when a new virus attacks, they are unable to fight back. People who do not follow the safety rules. We have already spoken about the safety rules in the Anni Addu story, and you may use it from YouTube. And so you may talk about the safety rules, wearing the mask, sanitizing the hands, maintaining social distance. So you may talk about these safety rules with children. Once children understand what COVID disease actually is, the next step would be to tell children, to explain whether COVID is a big disease or a small sickness, small disease. So we can tell children, because when we were talking about the case studies, we saw that many children had these thoughts. Many of you also put it in the chat box saying, will I die? Is everybody going to die? What will happen? So the misconception that every person who gets infected is going to die, the fear that children have. So COVID, we can explain, can be a big sickness for some people, and it may be a small sickness for others. We can further explain by saying when COVID is a small sicknesses means it is not very strong. It means that people can rest, they can drink warm water, they can drink liquids, they can stay at home, take their medication, and when they rest, when they take all the necessary precautions, they get better. When COVID is a big sickness, some people may also already have big sicknesses. When COVID is a big sickness, they go to the hospital, they stay there until they get better. They're usually people whose bodies are weak, who are old. If someone is in the hospital because they have to stay away from their family, because all others have to be away from them or they will get infection, so we can still be in touch with them. If we miss them, we can keep in touch by calling them, by making a video call, by writing an email, by writing a letter. So we may use these, we may still be connected with them, but they have to be in the hospital to get better, and they can come back when they feel all right. Only in certain cases when the sickness is very, very big and the medications don't work at all, when everything is tried, people sometimes still don't get better and their bodies may stop working then. So when the bodies stop working, a person may also die. Once we have spoken about all of this, it is also important when we are providing information, it is also important to provide constant hope and reassurance to children. We do not want to convey this message that it's a very scary situation, it's a very deadly disease. we have to give them some hope that things will get better. We have to give them some positive reassurances. So we also have to acknowledge and understand that they might be worried, and we have to acknowledge their own emotions. So we may say that, well, it is quite natural for anyone, even for you, to feel scared, anxious, and worried because, because of what you've heard and about this disease. But sometimes when we see people get sick, we worry too much. It is like just like in other diseases. I know that it is spreading and we don't know much about it, but just like other diseases, if we protect ourselves, if we keep ourselves protected by following some safety rules, we can prevent COVID, we can protect ourselves. So we may tell children this, and then we can also tell that you can also keep hoping. You can pray for the sick people to get better. So you can tell that it's not the end, and people, you can continue this conversation by telling them that I can understand that things look very scary and sad at the moment, but this is not permanent. Things will slowly get better. The doctors have worked very, very hard all day, all night to make a vaccine to keep us safe. A vaccine, you may also want to explain what a vaccine is at this point to children. So you may say that the vaccine is something that is put in your body to fight the coronavirus if it tries to attack our body. Remember, if we keep practicing the safety rules, we take care of ourselves, we get a vaccine, as some people are already beginning to get, we can stay safe. Remember, a vaccine does not guarantee, the doctors are telling that it does not guarantee 100% protection. We will still have to keep following the safety rules to keep ourselves safe and protected. The safety rules that I'm talking about, here are some things that you may do to keep yourself safe: by wearing a mask, by sanitizing your hands, by maintaining social distance and staying indoors, not going out. We can keep ourselves protected and safe. We can also, there are some other things that you may also do to keep yourself safe. And these are, you may do some physical exercises. You can eat healthy. You can read and learn, do your classes, keep yourself engaged. If you feel worried and tensed, you can do the breathing exercises. We had spoken about the guided imagery and other breathing exercise in last session, which is also available on YouTube. You make sure that you sleep well. So these are some of the other things that you can do to keep yourself safe. You can then, to address the worries and anxieties of children, you can also tell them that sometimes we worry so much. When the worry is too much, when we are scared, we keep thinking about this, about coronavirus. We even, at that time, we even stop doing things that we like. When we stop doing things that we like, there's a lot of space empty in our mind. And in that empty space, all the negative thoughts and worries, they grow. So as the worry grows, the corona monster also keeps growing. The more you will worry, this monster keeps growing. So it makes us sad, it makes us upset, and it kills all hope. But things are getting better. So what can you do to reduce this worry, to kill the corona monster? What can you do? So we can tell children that while you're following all the safety rules, while you're trying all the safety precautions, while you're eating healthy, sleeping in time, when you are reading, studying, you're exercising, you must also do some other things to fill in your mind with happy thoughts. You can do things that make you happy, make you feel hopeful. So you can sing, you can cook, you can dance, you can do things that you really enjoy. And in the end, like we had started our discussion, and we were always encourage children to ask questions. Remember that when you will talk about these things, it would take sometimes a while for children to process this information, understand this information. They may go back and then come back with stronger, they may have stronger emotions, they have more questions afterwards. So you can always ask them, you can tell them that I know that you may have more questions about the disease. Please feel free to ask me these questions and I would be happy to answer. You can also say that it is okay if you do not have any questions right now. Maybe you can come back later and I would be here to answer these questions about COVID or the current situation later whenever you would like. So always, friends, encourage questions. Uh, it is important to address the worries. It is important to address the thoughts that children have in their minds. It is remember that they may not instantly ask these questions. So give them some time and space to process and come back to you. Encourage a culture of conversation at home and in the institutions, because it is very, very important so that children do not feel find it difficult to talk to you. So once that you have made a disclosure, once you've told about the illness of a parent, when you've spoken about the corona disease, when you've talked about the current circumstances, remember that it is best to restore the normalcy, come back to the routine, make sure that the child has a routine in place. Sometimes when there is a chaos, when there's a situation like this, an emergency, we forget to take care of our children. So have a plan for children. Remember that if they are engaged, the worries would be lesser. That is one thing. Always be around. Sometimes not all children would respond in same way. Some children who already have heard about things may have more questions. So sometimes children will ask you questions, sometimes they will be quiet and silent. So you will have to go back and ask if there have been any thoughts afterwards. So remember that if you see any emotional changes, if you see any behavioral changes that you think are concerning, if you see that for 2 to 3 weeks they continue, it is important to ask for a help of the help of a mental health professional. Keep communicating with the child. Silence is not helpful. Half answers are not helpful. Keep Once you've started this conversation, continue the conversation. Keep in touch with the child. Acknowledge the child's emotions of being sad, being upset, being angry, being confused. So tell the child about all of this. If the child has anxiety, if the child withdraws, has crying spells, so again, the same thing, please refer to the reach out to a mental health professional. Use the deep breathing exercises, guided imagery, through me, guided imagery in case the child has panic attacks, or if the parent, in case the parent is in the hospital, and if you feel that the child is not doing all right, you may use these techniques. Reassure the child that he or she is not alone, that and provide updates and details, and tell them that under no give them a sense of control by sharing the right kind of information. Our stories, dear friends, are available on our on YouTube. We have developed this comic strip, and which I took you through, and we will be sharing the PDF of this on our website, and you may use it, take printouts and use it with children in the institutions or at home. Okay, so with this, we have come to the end of this presentation and of the session, and our last session about death death and grief, loss and grief would be on Saturday. So now we are open for the question answer round, and we invite Dr. Shekhar Shishadri, the principal investigator of SAMVAD, and Ms. Sheila Ramaswamy, the technical and operational lead, to answer the questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Priti. Thank you very much, June, for this session. Thank you very much, participants, for your active engagement, both on Zoom as well as on YouTube. In fact, I wanted to say that there have been a lot of issues pertaining to this whole agenda of age appropriate. The challenge, friends, really is how do you communicate with younger children? And that's what we wanted to address through this comic strip that Kriti has prepared, and she went through the narrative script of it. With adolescents and older children, the challenge is not as much as with younger children. So essentially, when we speak about age-appropriate communication, we're really talking about the challenges of how do you communicate with younger children. So I'm very happy that many of you have recognized this distinction. And this script was presented to you essentially to address the issue of how do you work with younger children, what kind of precepts do you use, what kind of language do you use, what kind of images do you use. The other thing I wanted to say is that as June and Kriti were going through many of the case scenarios and your responses, particularly to the thoughts that the children would have, you can see that in conceptualizing the kind of dilemmas, questions, concerns, and anxieties that children have in their mind, this conceptualization forms the context of your developing a response to the child. And that response is calibrated according to the age. It is a language issue. You simplify the concept and you simplify the response given the age of the child. And this, to me, friends, has been the power of this session, thanks to you and your active participation. I want to quickly go to some initial questions that came on Zoom chat, and we will attend to the YouTube chat also. Many people have spoken about, will we be discussing about breaking news about death? And I wanted to tell you that in our last session in this English series, we will indeed be addressing these issues. And from next week, the same 4 programs will be done in Hindi. There has been some issue on crisis and how do you really deal with a crisis. And one of the precepts that we follow with crisis, and thank you very much, Jayaji, for actually putting some things on Zoom chat to really address some of the basic tenets of crisis counseling. But one of the precepts we need to keep in mind is when a man is drowning, that's not the time to teach him how to swim. You save him first, and swimming can be taught later. Similarly, in crisis counseling, you look at any situation, whether it is loss and grief or whether it is trauma, children are often in a state of agitation. That's not the time to do depth inquiry or give a lot of instruction. That's the time for containment techniques to basically recognize and convey and acknowledge that I see that this is a difficult situation. I know it's difficult to talk at this point of time. There are so many things that are going on in your mind. Why don't I tell you some techniques to feel a little better so that then we can handle some of the other thoughts in your mind, and you teach them containment techniques such as guided imagery, such as relaxation, such as diary writing. And when the agitation and tension levels comes down, and then you get some of the questions, you begin to address them so that you provide a framework of truth, a framework of comfort, a framework of assurance, and a framework of hope in different proportions depending on what the reality of the child is. So these are some of the things that we need to keep in mind. Sheila?
I see a question on how to break the news of death of parents and grandparents at the same time due to COVID to girls aged 5 and 10 years. The script that we shared with you, starting with step one, what does health and wellness mean and what is sickness? What are big sicknesses and what are small sicknesses? And how, when there are certain big sicknesses, and COVID can be a big sickness sometimes, doctors do everything that they possibly can. Medicines are given, treatment is given, and yet people do not survive. That is how you break the news about the death of loved ones, of parents and grandparents, in the context of any sickness, and that includes COVID. So it is not about just directly saying that your parents and grandparents are no more, but you have a basis. You're moving from concepts of health and sickness to big and small sicknesses, how big sicknesses have more serious impacts, how some big sicknesses may be treatable. And COVID sometimes, is okay, people do recover, but sometimes there are sicknesses where people get so ill, and you can get COVID so severely that people do not recover. And when people do not recover, we say they are no more with us, and so they are dead. And we will be looking tomorrow, on Saturday, at how we talk to children about death and dying.
I'm going to be combining two sets of questions from YouTube chat as well as Zoom chat. Harishankarji asks in YouTube chat, what is the exact age that a child can identify the severity of a pandemic? Now, one may argue that a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old, do they really have a sense of pandemic in all its nuances and intricacies? Perhaps not. But even young children, preschoolers, have a sense that something is not right. A preschooler can sense that there is an atmosphere of tension at home. Mummy and daddy are not speaking, or noise levels are high, or there is silence. So there is the sense that they make of this. Added to this is the question that Dr. Shubhranshu is asking about how do we respond to a child, whatever the age, what to do in such a situation. And the issue is actually related to the question that Swati Ghate has put, do we do this in one setting? And I'd like to combine these two to say that it is not about a prescriptive response, but it's about generating alternatives. And depending on the time that we have at hand, most therapeutic or counseling processes are precisely that. They are processes. Sometimes we are compelled to complete some things in one sitting if it is a telephone helpline and the caller may not call again. Sometimes we do have the luxury of perhaps 2 or 3 settings, and we may be able to convert it into a process and therefore address what to do in terms of actually jointly generating alternatives, looking at it pros and cons, and then choosing what is an ideal internal response as well as an external response.
There is a question on when someone's father's COVID positive, we say, kid, don't worry, your father will get well soon and he'll be soon with us. His treatment is going on, but the father dies after a few days. In this type of situation, children's trust gets broken. What to do to avoid such a situation? That is precisely the purpose of today's session, friends. It's about explaining the virus to children. And you saw how one of the steps was about how COVID could be mild, it could be severe. And there is also the element of hope and reassurance. We hope that dad will get well. I think the doctors are doing everything they possibly can to make him well, but we never make these extreme statements of he will definitely be all right, he will absolutely be okay. So such statements are an absolute no. We tell the truth, explain the illness, provide hope and reassurance, to say, let's pray, let's hope that, he gets well. We have to always hope for the best, and people are trying their best, but keep it open. No promises, no guarantees. not ever where illness is concerned, and definitely not where children are concerned, not where anyone is concerned.
Let me
There's
again combine two issues here. One from Sunita Panda, the time frame required to settle a child about breaking the news, and one from Parveen Alia on YouTube chat on what should we do when a child doesn't listen or doesn't understand or accept, whether it is about loss or whether it is about being at home. You'll remember when we started this session that both Kriti and June spoke about trying to be as truthful as possible. Now, the issue, Sunita and Parveen Alia, is that the time frame is determined by the individual context of the child. And I cannot state this better than in the words of the famous American poetess Emily Dickinson when she says, "Tell all the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies, too bright for our infirm delight. The truth's superb surprise as lightning to the children eased with explanation kind. The truth must dazzle gradually, else every man be blind." So it's a question of looking at the age of the child, the context of the child, the sense of tension and agitation, and convert it into a process. And the time frame is really determined by the individual context of the child. And so in what time frame do you want to break the news? How is the child receiving it? So we take a one down position. Similarly, Parveen Alia, it's when a child does not listen initially, it's a question of converting into a process and a time frame कि पहली बार वो नहीं सुनेगा या दूसरी बार he's a little more receptive. So these are processes that we need to allow ourselves to engage in.
You may also want to refer back to our previous session, Parveen ma'am, the one we did on Tuesday that was titled "Fly Away Worries," where we have a story to help children understand COVID and why we need to stay at home, and a whole bunch of other activities and daily routines, and how to plan children's schedules so that they're able to stay at home and still do things that are fun and meaningful. So please do refer to that link. I see a question on how do you manage if children are sleepless, not eating, very clingy? What would be the course of action? The first thing, Akila ma'am, would be to understand what the context of some of these behaviors are. They sound like anxiety related issues because these are typical symptoms of anxiety in children, especially clinginess, difficulty with sleeping, nightmares, poor feeding, and so on. So if it is a young child that you are referring to, a child who's 5, 6, 7 years old, a lot of physical reassurance, a lot of physical affection and soothing, so that the child feels that at least one parent or caregiver is there. Distraction and diversion, activities that the child likes to do, some story reading, some playing, and so on. And ultimately, as our session today addressed, it is critical to find out what the child is anxious about. Is it about illness, in which case you could share some of the scripts we did today with the child, explain some of the things we did. If it is about the loss of a caregiver, and a child's anxiety is around death, and the mother has died, and the child's anxiety that will the father also die, will the grandmother also die, would I also die, and anxieties related to loss and death, that we will be addressing on Saturday, and we will provide you with further scripts on it. Jagjit sir says, does gender determine COVID response? I sometimes feel that COVID may have gender-based influence on person's emotional well-being. Jagdeep ji, I don't know whether gender determines a COVID response, but whether gender determines emotional responses may be more the question. How men and women are socialized to respond, or rather to express their emotions. The responses may not be that different. because emotional responses at the end of the day pertain to, loss, grief, depression, anxiety, worry, well, also, of course, joy, enthusiasm, and so on. So I believe it is more about, if gender were to come into play, it is more about expression of emotions. There are certainly certain stereotypes, boys must be brave and strong, men should not cry, women should, on the other hand, because they're softer hearted, etc. So perhaps it's more about social constructions and so stereotypes pertaining to gender rather than what actually is. Emotion is a universal human experience, we believe. And boys and girls, men and women should all be encouraged to express it, certainly not on the basis of gender, because that can create its own problems when we make emotional expression gendered and have rules, social rules for who is allowed to express emotions and who is not. Can result in a lot of complicated mental health morbidities thereafter.
Responding to Sunita Panda's issue on how to earn the trust of a child, things are so sudden these days. Sunita ma'am, trust earning, trust maintenance is a process. And when there is unpredictability around, we are really dealing with a new construct in psychology, which is called intolerance of uncertainty. And it's providing a framework for a child, as we had discussed in one of the previous sessions, between reality and possibility and the kind of aspirations and imagination that children have. How do you navigate what they see, what they are told, what they surmise on a day to day basis, which really structures the extent to which they feel secure or otherwise? Trust issues come when there is insecurity. So one tries to address the issues of insecurity to really come to an issue of trust. Akila, ma'am, as far as medication for anxiety is concerned, I want to go back to the point that Sheila was making in response to Jagjit when she spoke about differential issues. I would like to put for your consideration the idea that there is a difference between a thought, a concern, a worry, an anxiety, a fear, and a terror. These are all responses to the COVID uncertainty. You have a thought or a doubt. You have a concern, but you're doing all right. You have a worry and you're seeking reassurance, but you're sleeping well and otherwise. You have an anxiety, which is a little more problematic. And then your fear, which is disabling. And then you're terrorized, which paralyzes you. So if severe symptoms of anxiety, of agitation, of sleep disturbance, of not being able to eat, or of being dysfunctional for more than 2 weeks persist. It's only in those cases that we really think about medication. But we often use the paradigm, Akila ma'am, that you are not the problem. The problem is the problem. It is the anxiety that is a problem. And the anxiety is an understandable response to the situation. It's a normal response to an abnormal situation. And let's talk about ways in which we can alleviate a circumstance. So, yes, structuring, routine, following the child's lead are exceedingly important preliminary steps in our first level response, and then we take it ahead.
Dr. Shubhranshu asks, what if the child refuses to attend online classes while her parent is at hospital? How do we respond? Um, we certainly cannot coerce children to engage in activities, especially serious activities like classes, if they are exceedingly anxious. There can be some gentle persuasion, maybe not, if the online class is for 4 hours, perhaps if the child could be gently persuaded to attend half an hour to 1 hour, to say that it might be a distraction. It is presented as a distraction to the child, not in terms of you have 10 standard exams coming and you better be attending this class no matter what is happening to your parents. surely you cannot afford to fail the exam. That would not serve the purpose. But to say, perhaps if you attend a couple of hours here and there, as and when possible, it may actually help you feel better, because it would distract you and divert your mind for a little while to be seeing your friends online, talking to your teacher, and thinking about something else. That's how it could be presented.
Sheila, there are many issues that have come up about children with autism and children with disability, hearing disability, speech disability, autism, and how does this whole scenario play out in the context of children who have these kind of issues? We've spoken about autism. We've spoken about children who have deficit. Some of these issues have come up, and someone spoke about hearing disability, and what specific arrangements are there for such children, and what about autism? And I presume we can add intellectual disability also to this list of concerns of children with special needs.
So, where children with intellectual disability and autism are concerned, children with autism have social skills deficits, language issues, as you know, emotional processing issues. But that does not mean that they have no emotional responses. The generic responses that we have presented today, the comic script that has been presented to you, and I believe a PDF version is now being shared as we speak for your reference and for your use, can also be used with children with autism and mild intellectual disability, for they still have the ability to comprehend some of these facts. When you're talking to children like this, let's say it's a 10 or 12-year-old child with mild intellectual disability, we know then that we are working with a child who essentially has the cognitive capacities of, let us say, about a 7 or 8-year-old. And therefore, we present that script and those facts with the simplicity that we would to a 7, 8-year-old. Similarly, with children with autism, we would want to simplify it and present it. The other important issue is that uh, with any child, with any younger child, and then therefore with a child with autism or intellectual disability, in general, disclosure is not a one-off process. It may information has to be presented uh, piece by piece in ways that it is comprehensible to the child. And remember that young children have a certain capacity to understand, take in, and process information. So one idea at a time, maybe one idea today about health and wellness and a related idea on sickness, and then tomorrow we talk about big sickness and small sickness. uh, these have to be presented in bites. Similarly to children with autism and intellectual disability, very simple. Some of it would have to be repeated. The repetition would serve two purposes. One is, from a comprehension point of view, children may find it confusing, and they may need some repetition so that things are explained again and again. The other issue is children may actually understand, but where issues are difficult and they don't want to hear what you are telling them, that mommy is very sick, mommy is in hospital, there is a desperate hope, there is some denial in the child's mind, a hope that this news isn't true. So sometimes children have a tendency, young children particularly, have a tendency to keep asking questions repeatedly, hoping that the answer will be different. So the idea is to be patient and to consistently provide answers and responses piece by piece, one idea at a time, no more than a 15 to 20-minute discussion with children who are under the age of about 7 or 8, and that would then include children with mild intellectual disability and autism. Maybe half an hour sessions if you were to provide illness and disclosure related information to children who are about 10 years or 11 years old. And then, of course, you have adolescents, and you may spend much longer because they are able to engage, and their cognitive and therefore their comprehension levels are higher.
There are a couple of questions also about children with externalizing behaviors, such as concentration issues or stealing behaviors. And how do children, so anxiety, being upset, distressed in child psychiatry are known as internalizing conditions. And externalizing behaviors are basically, behaviors like aggression and acting out behaviors. And one of the common strands that we have been pointing out in all the work that we do is often concentration issues or behavioral problems are behaviors. And these are end expressions or manifestations of a process where they are preceded by emotional states, by the child's own thought processes, by the child's experiences. Therefore, whenever we address problems like this, we do not address just the behavior, because for an averagely intelligent child, uh, they know that stealing perhaps is not correct, or that I need to concentrate more. So there is no point in telling them that you should not do this, it's inappropriate, or it's bad. The point is that it's occurring in a certain context, perhaps of an unmet need, uh, perhaps of an attraction of an object. Perhaps the concentration problem is because of worry and not really because of a core concentration problem. And it is in this process of inquiry and an acknowledgement of the child's context and experience and how the child is thinking through these situations that the child feels understood and assuaged and respected. And then the motivation to engage in further assistant processes become that much more. So that's the way that I would really look at this situation.
There are a couple more questions here. One on what should a child do when his parents are COVID positive and no one is there to look after him? Uh, if a child is alone, we'd like to put out some of the posters to you that we have developed. There's a lot of information floating around on this. In the absence of any neighbors and extended family who can look after this child, it would be important for people around to contact A, the police, and B, the District Child Protection Unit, the nearest DCPO office, to let them know that this child is alone so that temporary shelter can be provided for this child and arrangements can be made. The other question we have is how to improve the concentration of the child or children during this situation. By this situation, I'm assuming you mean during the pandemic, and particularly if children are in a situation where their parents or caregivers or loved ones are sick and ill with COVID. One of the reasons why we did this session on disclosure is its relationship with anxiety and therefore concentration. When children are exceedingly anxious in this current situation, the anxieties pertain to COVID and loved ones being sick. It is only by explaining the illness, talking to children, addressing their concerns about illness, that we can reduce their anxieties. Therein lies the importance of illness disclosure to children. So when anxiety goes down, then there is a chance that some focus on daily activities or things need to be done would improve. But this is not going to bring about 100% improvement in concentration, or wipe out worries completely. Therefore, please note that I say reduction in anxiety and worries, not an erasure of anxieties and worries. So again, like I said, addressing children's anxieties, helping them to relax, doing relaxation activities, daily scheduling, these are ways to help children in ways that are non-coercive and gentle to move towards doing some activities in a focused manner.
And finally, friends, I wanted to tell you that for many other issues that you're putting on chat, for example, how to control anger, uh, how to control stress, if you look at the website that we have put for you, there are a lot of materials on the website, particularly in the training and in the intervention section, where anger control strategies, simple modules of how to work with children will be present. To close this,
There are a couple more
the
things.
age of anxiety. Are we in it? Freud many years ago spoke about the age of anxiety, and it appears that it comes in peaks and troughs. And indeed, we are going through this as almost an international experience. In some ways, our collective responsibility is actually to address the situation of children. Thank you very much for your active participation. Sheila, if there's anything else that you
Yeah.
would like to take.
There are a last couple of questions that I'd like to take. Some of them are important.
Focus on that.
Vikash sir says, what is the role of the Child Welfare Committee in this situation? You may want to refer back to the first part of our series, which was on child protection. The role of the Child Welfare Committee is primarily with regard to orphaned and abandoned children, placement of children, placement in terms of with extended family, with in kinship care, in adoption, and so on. Also for families that have been affected economically by the COVID crisis, especially vulnerable families, migrant children and their families, to look at placement issues to see whether children can really be repatriated or whether they need to continue temporary placement in institutions. So the Child Welfare Committee's responsibilities pertain to protection related issues and placement, and also to getting children access to mental health facilities where required. A last question on assisting parents with anger outbursts. A lot of the anxiety related strategies that we shared on daily routines, on hobbies, on some me time for parents, some alone time. These would be critically important so that they are able to also be reasonably functional, physical exercise, listening to music, and a lot of stress busters as much as we can possibly manage, including maybe doing some new things that parents always wanted to do, whether it's learning a new language or gardening, things you always wanted to do, but parents, you were never at home to really do, to use this opportunity. The rules about watching a little bit less of the news and so on also apply to adults, not just to children. So on that note, thank you very much on behalf of Dr. Shekhar Sheshadri and our team here at Samvad, to Priti, June, and all the rest of our team, to every one of you, dear friends and participants who've made this such an interesting evening and a meaningful evening and session for us all. We look forward to seeing you at our next session, the last of this series in English, on Saturday evening at 5:30. This one is called In My Heart Forever, where a lot of questions that you have asked about how to deal with loss, grief, and death issues in children, how to help children cope, will be addressed. Again, we will be sharing stories and methodologies, interventions that you can do with children on this last issue. And until then, friends, stay well, stay safe. That's all from Samvad until Saturday evening. Have a good evening and good night.